allowable today. The afternoon session is going to start. We're a little behind, but I want to introduce the next individual to you as our Pierce County executive. And he's taking time out of his schedule because it's important to him to come and say hello to you and welcome you to Pierce County. But before I have him come up here, I would like you to understand how that came about. He writes a blog as well, like Shanice does. And he wrote one, and in it was Justice for All was the header. And I saw that, and I said, you know what, I'm going to email him and point out what I'm doing, what my bench is doing, and see if he was interested. And guess what? He immediately responded because this was important to him. So at this time, I'd like to introduce you to the Pierce County Executive, Bruce Damron.
Thank you, Judge Whitener. It is awesome to be here with you today. I don't know what you see when you look up here, but I'll tell you, when I look out there, the thing that is the most exciting to me is I see a better Tacoma, I see a better Pierce County, and I see a better Washington State. I am so excited to be able to talk to you young women today because the potential in this room is amazing. And you're going to hear that. I know you've heard that this morning. You're going to hear it from me. You're going to hear it this afternoon. So my name is, as Judge Whitener said, I'm Bruce Damron. I have the privilege of representing all 850,000 people who live in Pierce County. And I am here on their behalf saying thank you for taking this time to join us. And I wanted to take a second to tell you just a little bit about my story. So just because I think it's a little bit relevant, I was born in Tacoma, grew up in the University Place, graduated from Curtis High School. Any Vikings out here? Good. Got the back table down there, way to go. Good to see Tawana back there. And I would tell you that my parents instilled a couple of really important values in my life. The first thing was hard work. You've got to work hard and push through some barriers. I had the privilege after Curtis High School, I went to the United States Naval Academy back in Annapolis, Maryland. There was a lot of things back there and in the Navy that were really hard to do. Some things I didn't want to do at all, like jump off the 10-meter platform because I don't like heights. But you know what? I pushed through that and did it. I took engineering there. I'm not an attorney. There's a lot of attorneys in this room, but I am not one of them. But that really showed me the value of hard work. And I would encourage you, my parents emphasized that, I would encourage you to think about that. And then the second one is the power of education. I will tell you that I am a true believer in public education, in what it can do to transform your lives, to allow you to achieve your dreams, but also to make our community better, both economically and we live in a democracy, and it's the key to a strong democracy. So education is the key. And I'll put a little bit of truth behind that. I chose, the first place I was elected to anything was to the Puyallup School Board. And I did that because that was where I saw the value of education. I believe in that tremendously. And I know that the key to unlocking the potential in this room is you getting a good education. So I'm trusting that you're all going to work really, really hard to do that. The second thing that my parents talked to me about a lot was the obligation of giving back to your community, of leaving your community better than you found it. And that has been probably the key motivation behind my public service. That's why I served on the school board. That's why I then went down into Olympia, where I worked in the legislature. I worked primarily on school issues. But that was one of the things that I noticed down there. A couple things that were really key is when you're making a law or when you're making an important decision, getting good input from a variety of different perspectives is critically important. When you make laws in Olympia, you do it with 49 senators and 98 representatives. And you can imagine from all over the state of Washington, from Colville to Vancouver, from every single corner of the state. And you can understand how when you're making a law that applies to everybody in the state of Washington, you want to do a good job. And I'll tell you that I think I wrote really good laws. I worked hard at it when I was a senator in particular, and I would think I did a really good job. But every time, no matter how good a job I thought I did, when I was able to talk to other people with different perspectives, other people representing different parts of the state, other people representing different communities with different experiences, that made the laws better. So I am a firm believer that by getting more voices involved, more perspectives involved, that is good for everybody. But I know you're here today to talk about justice, and I would tell you my exposure to it has pretty much been primarily as your county executive in the last 8 months. I didn't do any of that kind of lawmaking when I was in Olympia. I was primarily looking at school laws and budgets. But I would tell you, so I would say that education is the key for our future opportunity, right? Justice is critically important because it protects our rights, both our civil rights, right, the ones that we want in the kind of the civil court, but also it protects our rights in that is where we decide who has broken the rules enough that they should be set apart from society. Those are both critically important roles, right? How to protect us and how to decide when someone should be locked away for a period of time. So I am very excited that you are here today because in those areas, in particular, we need new and a variety of fresh perspectives. We need the potential that you offer. I can tell you I've been so encouraged. There's a number of judges in this room. And I would tell you I've been so encouraged to watch the work that they do. I would tell you that I probably thought it was, up there banging the gavel, making all, it had to be smart, right? They're making really important decisions that affect people. And that's true. But it's also not just head knowledge. It's heart knowledge. It's understanding the experience that people are bringing to the table. I would tell you that I have seen some amazing things, and the attorneys and the judges who are represented here are doing some incredible work for the citizens of Pierce County. A great example of that, I think, is most recently, if you read the newspaper, which I know nobody under 20 does, there's a recent story about Judge John Hickman's court, baby court. It's a great example of how we have said, and Judge Hickman is leading the charge in that, to say that we want to, ideally, we don't want to, even though this young woman had a chemical dependency problem, she was addicted to drugs and had a mental health issue, and she was separated from her baby. And the thought was, wait a second, maybe we can help her get not addicted, break her addiction to drugs, help her get treatment for her mental health issues, and then get her reunited to her baby. Isn't that a better outcome for everybody, right? Isn't that a better outcome? So that's a great example of how being involved in our justice system is not just banging a gavel up and down hard and fast rules, right? You've got to have a heart, you've got to have a brain. So I would tell you, so my first thing, and I'm going to break with tradition here, the two careers I would encourage you to consider as you go forward. First, I would encourage you, if you feel so become a teacher. We need amazing teachers in our schools. You will have tremendous impact on a myriad of kids. So I'd encourage you to consider that. The second one would be as an attorney, because I think you can shape and make the difference. So that's the last thing that I would leave you with, is we all know the potential. When I look out here, I said, you can make Pierce County better. You will be able to make Tacoma better. You will be able to make our state better. As long as you work hard, study hard, and we're all counting on you to do both. So thank you very much. I appreciate your time.
I know our schedule is tight, so I had to kind of sneak in there. But powerful words, and thank you so much. I do appreciate that. We're going to transition in, and I know you're having lunch, and it was expected, to our keynote speaker for the afternoon. But the individual that's going to be introducing our keynote speaker, you've already seen her peripherally, and she's on our Pierce County Superior Court bench. She's one of our more senior judges, female judges on our bench, and I'm really happy to introduce Judge Sue Serco, who will introduce your afternoon keynote speaker.
I love being referred to as senior. Actually, I'm wearing a couple of hats today. Our presiding judge, I'm the acting presiding judge because I serve on the executive committee, and our presiding judge is not here, but she sent a message. And so, with these words, think of a much shorter person with all brown hair. Good afternoon, and warm welcome to all of you to the Color of Justice event. I am so sorry I could not be with you today. First and most importantly, thank you to Judge Whitener, who has tirelessly put this whole event together. She's applauding herself. That's a good thing. And we also thank all of the speakers and judges who took time out of their busy calendars to come and share with you. Thank you. Again, this is Judge Martin speaking. We are so excited that you could join us to learn about careers in the law and judiciary. Judge Serco and I became lawyers on the same day in the Washington Supreme Court nearly 35 years ago. I'm sure she would agree with me that it has truly been a remarkable, challenging, and deeply rewarding career. We are honored to be hearing from some amazing women today, each of them sharing their own unique and inspiring stories. This is the most important. As you listen to their stories, and as you've heard this morning, look for the sources of inspiration, their mentors. For as different as each of us are, one thing most of us have in common: it's the special person or persons in our lives that gave us inspiration and encouragement to pursue our dreams. It may have been a parent, a teacher, a role model, an adult mentor. I hope that you will find today's presentations inspiring, and never forget to believe in yourself and your limitless possibility. So that from our presiding judge. From me personally, I want to say I echo all of those remarks and would like to add that in 35 years of being a lawyer, an administrative law judge, and now a superior court judge, this profession is always interesting. There's something different to do every single day, and that was true regardless of my role, whether it was as a lawyer, administrative law judge, mediator, and now a superior court judge. There are not many professions that give you that diversity, and this is one. And you will always have, frankly, you'll have fun. There have been some questions along the way about, isn't this a sad job? It can be. It can be a sad job, but it is also an incredibly rewarding job and a lot of fun. So I commend it to you. I encourage you to consider choosing law as the career and joining us. So with that, I'm going to introduce our next speaker. She is Judge Linda Lee. She was appointed to the Court of Appeals on December 20th, 2013, so she spent almost 4 years as an appellate judge. She was appointed by Governor Inslee. Prior to being on the Court of Appeals, as I think you've just heard, she served for almost 10 years as a judge on the Pierce County Superior Court. Before that, she was a partner at the law firm of Gordon Thomas, which is one of our biggest law firms here in Tacoma. Her areas of practice were complex commercial litigation, representing healthcare providers, doing insurance defense work, and litigation on behalf of both public and private sectors in obtaining insurance coverage for liabilities and losses. She received her JD degree, that is her law degree, from William Richardson School of Law in Honolulu, Hawaii. She's admitted to both the Hawaii and the Washington State Bar. In the community, she's very committed. Major focus in her life has been on behalf of the Chinese Reconciliation Project Foundation, building the waterfront Chinese garden in Tacoma, dedicated to reconciling the expulsion of the Chinese from the city of Tacoma in 1885. She has participated in the annual Pierce County Minority Bar Association's Youth and Law Forum, and had done so since its inception in 1999. Prior to becoming a judge, she served as a volunteer mediator for the Pierce County Dispute Resolution Center, served on the boards of the Corporate Council for the Arts, Pierce County Committee, the Tacoma World Trade Center, Bates Technical College Foundation, and the Asian Bar Association of Washington. She continues as a mentor to students interested in or currently attending law school. So I think it was Judge Phelps that said, contact us. She's another one that you can contact. Now, I would be remiss if I didn't give a little fun fact about Judge Lee. As far as we know, she's the only one on the Washington State Superior Court who, as a judge on the Superior Court, had a baby while serving as a judge. And the reason I raise that as a fun fact about Judge Lee is that it tells each and every one of you, maybe that you can't have everything, but you certainly can meet a lot of your goals in this life, and you can do it in this profession and as a judge. So with that, I introduce you to Judge Linda Lee.
Thank you, Judge Zerko, and thank you, Judge Whitener, for putting this together. You know, I don't like standing behind podiums, so if you guys don't mind, if I could clip this on and walk around, would you guys mind if I did that? Yeah. Instead of just standing here, because I don't like walls. I have an attitude too, I don't like walls. So if I could just wander around, if it's okay with you. I am Linda Lee, and I am a judge on the Court of Appeals, and you folks learned this morning what the Court of Appeals is right below the Washington Supreme Court, so Judge Yu is my boss, in that sense. But I sat through the speeches this morning, and I saw all of you girls listening very intently, and I was so impressed with that, because you guys were just paying very close attention to everything that was said. So now here's your test. Didn't know you were going to be tested, but yes you are. Can you share with me, based on what you've learned, not only this morning, but in school and in your life, what does justice mean to you? Can somebody share with me? Think about it. Yes?
Kind of like to stick up for yourself.
To stick up for yourself. Okay. What else does justice mean to you? Yes? Being fair to others. That's great. And? Fighting for the little person. That's a good one too. And? Equality. Those are all great. And
Stop bullying.
I'm sorry?
Stopping bullying.
Stopping bullying. That's really good. What else does justice mean to some of you? Doing the right thing. Really good. And civil and human rights. Civil and human rights. That's the twofer right there. Anybody else? What does justice mean to you in your heart, in your brain? What does justice mean to you? Okay. Yes.
I think it means basically, okay, I can just go into detail. So, like, I use Batman as an example.
Batman is an example, okay. That's a good example. The good one or the bad one? I have to check.
Yeah, I use him as an example because he has one prime role, he doesn't kill, he lets the law uphold it and he takes it to the police. Basically, I think what it means is basically knowing where you're supposed to stay and affecting other people.
Knowing what's right, sticking with the law,
And if you can't agree with it, then that's their right.
and be respectful. Following the law and being respectful. You know what? Those are all really good answers from all of you. But you know, as I listen to all of your answers, one common theme runs through my brain as to what justice means to a lot of you. And I think someone said it over there. It's doing what's right. And if we keep that basic principle in mind, justice is doing what's right. So if you keep that in mind, who do you think can do justice? Who do you think can do justice? Yes. Yourself? Yourself? Good answer. Anyone else? Who can do justice? Besides judges, we're supposed to be doing justice. Yes. Both of you.
Everyone is capable.
Everyone is capable of doing justice. That's wonderful. You know, there's a symbol for justice. How many of you know that there's actually a symbol for justice? Yeah, you know who the symbol. What is the symbol for justice? It's a scale. You're right. I printed up the symbol for justice. The symbol for justice is the blind lady of justice. Have you guys seen her before? Yeah, you notice a couple of things about her. Somebody says she has scales, right? She holds a scale. And she's blindfolded, and she has a sword in one hand. So scale in one hand, sword in the other, and a blindfold. And those are three very important symbolisms. One, she's blindfolded. Just as you mentioned this morning that the law does not see the color of race. You're blindfolded. You're supposed to make decisions based on being objective, which means you don't base on your prejudices. You base it on what the law is and doing the right thing and what is fair. There's scales balancing the evidence. Remember we talked about evidence this morning, and part of justice is looking at all of the evidence and seeing how it balances out. And what I didn't know, and I learned last night because I had to Google it, what the sword meant. And the sword is a symbol for punishment or fighting off evil. So that's our symbol for justice. And when you think about doing right and who can do justice, how many of you, let me take a different tack. How many of you think you can be a judge or a justice at this time? Okay, I've got a couple of hands. Good, okay. Well, let me ask you some questions. And if this answer pertains to you, can you raise your hand? How many of you are in public school? How many of you have a parent or parents who have to work 2 or 3 jobs just to survive? Okay. How many of you have parents who are immigrants? How many of you have where English is not your first language? You speak a foreign language first and you had to learn English as a second or third or fourth language. How many of you have had a family member struggle with substance abuse? Drugs and alcohol. Yeah, how many of you had that affect your life somehow? How many of you have been told you cannot do something because you're a girl? How many of you have had someone tell you you can't do something because you're a girl? Yeah, a lot of us, right? Well, let me tell you, if you answered yes to one or more of these questions, you can do justice, you can be a lawyer, and you can be a judge. Because I answered yes to every one of those questions. So if I can do it, you can do it. Okay? So, the theme today, we've all heard, is the color of justice. And what my point to you today is the color of justice is actually you. Each and every one of you. Each and every one of you, if you put your mind to it, can become a lawyer, can become a judge. And there's no excuse for not doing it other than you didn't want it bad enough. So if you want to do it, you can do it, and I encourage you to do it. But one thing you should all know and keep to heart is that you don't do it alone. We've heard this morning and we've heard it throughout. Everybody in this room, and who's a female judge, didn't get here by herself. We all had help along the way. And all the judges in this room are all willing to help you. And there are others in your life who will be willing to help you. Embrace that help, ask for help. People will be very supportive. We all need mentors. And it doesn't mean you're weak. It doesn't mean you're not good enough. It just means you're smart enough to ask for help. All right? So I know my time is short. I know Judge Whitener wants to keep me on a short leash because I can go on forever. But I would like to take some questions from you. If you have any questions, I will be more than happy to answer them. Yes, ma'am.
You said that you had answered all of the questions that you said, right?
Yes.
So, like, on the drug part, was it payable? Like, did it
Okay. I had a brother. I say had because he's passed away. He passed away because of drug abuse. So it's something that I grew up with. He had a drug problem since I was a young child. I think I was under 10 years old, and we had to struggle with that. And it affected our life. It affected our family. So we can't use drugs or family members with drugs as an excuse as to how we live our lives. It's our own choices. It was his choice to do what he did. It was my choice to do what I did. So life is full of choices, and we all have to make choices. And hopefully we make the right choices. All right? Anyone else? Oh, question in the back. Yes, Matt. All right. Yes. Okay, who are some Asian American role models I had in my life? I would say my first Asian American role model I had in my life was my mom. Because she didn't have an education. She was from China. She didn't even finish the 6th grade. So she was very uneducated. English was her second language. She spoke Chinese, and we spoke Chinese at home. I grew up speaking Chinese. When I went to kindergarten, I knew no English. It was the most frightening experience. Just like Judge Yu told you this morning, it was frightening. My mom came from China, so she cooked Chinese food all 5 years. I grew up eating Chinese food. First day of kindergarten, they served me lunch. I know now that it was beef stew. I had no idea what it was before. This strange food got put in front of me, and this white thing, which was milk, got put in front of me, and they made me drink the milk. I'm lactose intolerant. I got really sick, as I never had milk before, because I'm lactose intolerant. So I digress. But so my mom was my role model, and because she never even finished the 6th grade, she didn't speak English, but she tried her best. She worked really hard, and she made sure the kids grew up with the value system that she wanted of hard work, education. You need education to get further in life. So from the time I was 5 years old, it was drilled into my head. You will go to school, you will get good grades, and you will go to college, and oh, by the way, you're paying for your own college. because we can't afford it. So that was my first role model. Growing up, I grew up in Hawaii, so it's a little bit different. In Hawaii, there's a lot of Asian Americans, and they were in all different professions. So I saw teachers as role models, and there were a lot of Asian female teachers there. I know growing up here it might be a little bit different, but you can still find role models everywhere you look. You just gotta be willing to look and see. Okay. Another question, yes?
What is drug abuse?
What is drug abuse? Drug abuse is being addicted to drugs, and drugs alter your ability to think straight and affects your behavior. And when you become addicted, that becomes your main focus, and you forget about other important things like going to work, going to school, etc. So it takes over your life, and it's a downward spiral sometimes if you don't do something about it. Anything else? Yes, ma'am.
This is my last question.
No, you don't have to be the last question.
Okay, did your brother go to jail when he was using?
Okay, I don't know the answer. She asked if my brother went to jail. I don't know the answer to that because my brother dropped out of sight for a long time, a lot of years, and then all of a sudden, one day I got a phone call, and it was from the San Francisco Police Department. I had no idea he was in California, and they had found him passed away. So I don't know the answer to that.
There was another question.
Yes, ma'am. Oh, two of them. Great. Yes. What do I like most about my job? I like that question. I get asked that a lot. What I like most about my job is I wake up every morning, I go to work, and my only purpose in life at work that day is to do what's right. And that feels really good. My whole focus is to follow the law and do what's right. I love it. I love it. You have a question yet? Okay, the question was, when I had my baby, was it hard to do my job and have a baby? Oh yes. It was very hard. Babies don't sleep a lot. She still doesn't sleep a lot. So I was surviving on maybe 2 hours of sleep a night and coming to work. But I had a great group of people I worked with, Judge Aaron. I can't see some of the other. I'm also kind of blind, so I have to wear glasses to see. But the Pierce County Superior Court bench was just wonderful, and they helped support me. And that's all part of that network of support. But it was hard. Eventually, you get over it. But if you're passionate, someone talk about passion. If you're passionate about what you do it. You don't think about it. Yes. I am extremely happy. Is there a question? Do I not look happy? Yes, I am extremely happy. I love my job. I love my family, everything. I love the people I work with. But mostly, I love going to work because I love my job. I like doing the law. I like doing what's right. And it's so important to me. Yes. 2 questions here. Yes. My reaction when I was told when my brother passed away, I would say I was in shock. Because first of all, I had no idea, of course, where he was. And second of thing, it was really hard for me. Personally, it was hard for me because my mother was visiting. So I had to tell my mother that her son was dead. And that was hard. So that was the most difficult part of that. Yes?
What was the biggest struggle you had to overcome in your life?
The biggest struggle I had to overcome in my life. I think the biggest struggle that I still struggle with today is thinking that one day I'm going to wake up and everybody's going to think that I'm a fake. It's a confidence issue. We go through life, we try to do our best. And I try my best every day, but I always have the fear that maybe my best isn't good enough. That's what I struggle with every day, which I use as a driver and a motivator to do better. So it keeps it going. So I try harder and I work harder because I want to make sure I'm doing what's right. Yes, ma'am. Okay. Right. And the question here was, when you go to school, do you have to take a lot of different classes, or do you just, like if you're a family law judge, do you just do family classes or everything? No, when you go to law school, you get subject areas from everything. So you learn a little bit about everything. When you become a judge, you, as a Superior Court judge, you do everything. And, you know, someone asked me, what was my biggest fear? My biggest fear was my first criminal trial. I didn't do criminal law as a lawyer. So I studied what they call the Sentencing Reform Act, which is a whole book. I studied procedures, because they have special procedures. You just start reading and you just get yourself prepared. And preparation is a big, important point. If you don't know something, you read up on it, you learn it, and you become prepared. That's, yes. Oh, what's the hardest case I've ever done? Oh, that's a tough question. I think for me personally, the hardest case I have ever had to do was a criminal trial where a mom was on trial for abusing her child. She had put bleach in her 18-month baby's eyes. And I had a 5-year-old at home at the time, so I couldn't imagine, I had my own baby. That was hard emotionally for me, and trying to keep the emotions, because I'm supposed to be making decisions that are fair and objective and neutral and not based on emotions. So that was a really tough thing. So it was a good lesson for me to learn how to put my emotions aside and continue focusing on the law and what's right. What kind of trials have I lost? Ooh, that's a good question. What kind of trials have I lost? Gosh, you're having me dig back into my memory bank so much. That's a hard one. Help me. Some of these judges have been. Did I lose in front of any of you? Yeah, we try to forget the losses a lot. I will think through it and I'll let you know later, okay? Okay. The baby did not die, but she did have her eyesight affected. So it was a tough thing. Yeah. Yes.
Have you had like a funny scenario that you had to do trial?
A funny scenario? Not doing a trial in a funny scenario, but I can tell you, doing trials, I love doing trials, but it always made me nervous. And I can remember one of my very first trials I did. I came in, I was here early at the courthouse. I got all my stuff. I wrote it. I had all these boxes of documents for the trial, and I wrote it into the courtroom. It was a jury trial, and I was an idiot, I'll admit it. You know those bungee cords? I had one of those. I unhooked it, and rather than hanging onto it, it flung and hit me in the eye. And so I had my eyes started swelling and tearing, and I couldn't see out of it. And so my first jury trial, my eyes swollen, I couldn't really see out of one eye really. And, you have to carry on. So I carried on. And we did the trial, and at the end of the trial, the lawyers were allowed to talk to the jury. And the first thing the jury did was laugh at me. They said, that first couple of days, we were really worried about you, man, because you were just walking around with one eye red and shut. We didn't know what was going on with you. But that was my experience to never use a bungee cord again. Yes. Yes. Okay, first question is, if you go to college, what do you major in? If you want to go into the law, many people major in political science. I was a psychology major. And I found psychology as helpful because what psychology does, it helps you understand people and the human mind and personalities. So I have found that very helpful. But truly, you can major in anything you want because law school isn't a prerequisite for something. It's college and then law school, so you don't have to major in pre-law or something. You can even be a business major and go to law school. What's your second question?
If you think that the person is law, I think they're guilty.
You do. You are to represent your client to the best of your abilities. And most people who are defense lawyers, and there are many in this room who are former defense lawyers, I think they believe, as a defense lawyer, even if you believe your client is guilty, you still have to do your best because your role is to make sure that that person gets a fair trial. Even if they're guilty, they still need a fair trial. And that's the ultimate goal, being fair. All right? Okay, yes. As an Asian woman, did I encounter any specific challenges that I've encountered? I would say so. Sometimes it's hard to know whether it's because I'm an Asian woman or because I'm a woman as to whether these challenges are coming. But I can tell you some of my early experiences. I'll share one with you. There was one case that I had a lawyer on the other side, and he was a male, white male in his mid-40s, and he was one of those that were fire and brimstone. He'd pound on the table and say, "Little lady," to me. And he was just being a bully. Somebody talked about a bully. But my job was to represent my client. I didn't budge. I didn't return his insults. I was true to myself, as I encourage all of you to be true to yourself. Stand your ground, be respectful, always. Always stand your ground, always be respectful, stand your ground. The case was done, and the next day he called me up and asked me out. So I don't know whether if it's because I'm an Asian, but I can tell you, being an Asian female, you would think, you look at me, but I can tell you, I can walk down the streets of Seattle, and even today, walking down in Seattle, downtown Seattle, I will be asked, "Excuse me, do you speak English?" Even today. So keep in mind that our society has progressed, but sometimes it's 2 steps forward, 1 step back. Take it in stride. You will be told things that you shouldn't be told. Things will be said to you, like Justice Yu said this morning when she was asked, "What are you?" My question is always, do you speak English? So it happens. Just take it in stride, be respectful, and move on.
Like all the cases you had,
I'm being cut off.
like all the cases you had, did you have to like draw the line somewhere and recuse yourself?
I have recused from cases where, just like one of the judges spoke about this morning, on cases where my husband is a lawyer too. So I have had to recuse myself, step away from cases in which he or his firm was on the case. Yeah.
You're like going against each other.
Oh, I've never gone against him. I don't think he wants to go against me. Okay, I was told one more. Can I do one more? Pardon me? Struggles to getting to where I am. What were some of my struggles? Trying to overcome some of the stereotypes of an Asian woman. I have been told that they did not think I was capable enough because I'm a wallflower. Have I given you the impression I'm a wallflower? No, I didn't think I was a wallflower, but that is the stereotype people have of Asian women, that they're wallflowers, they're quiet, they're not assertive, they just don't speak up. So that trying to overcome some of those stereotypes has been a challenge. So that they don't think, just that stereotype, overcome has been my biggest struggle.
Let's thank you, Judge Lee. On your agenda has a meet and network with the female judges session, but you've already met them and you're networking. So I'm pulling Judge Phelps in to help us continue this discussion and do it at each table. It will be somewhat interactive, and let's get each other involved and answer some questions. I noticed some of the questions towards the end has to do with How do we deal with being treated differently? I'm quite sure many of the judges of color here will tell you, stepping out on the bench, we're challenged continuously, daily. I believe Commissioner Aaron's already told you her experiences. I recently had one yesterday afternoon as I came back in the building to prepare some of this stuff for you, and I was stopped by security because he could not believe I belonged here. I had to get his boss to come down, and when he saw me, he said, "Aren't you a judge?" And I said, "Yes." And the gentleman to this morning, he's downstairs, is apologizing still. But you take the high road when they go low. Always be respectful and stand your ground, as Judge Lee just told you. So I'm going to have Judge Phelps put this on, and let's get a discussion going. And if you have questions, ask them, and let's get some judges answering them. But you also have your judges at your table, and I'm sure you've already met them, and you've connected with them, and if you want to continue that dialogue, you can. After we're finished with this session, I have actually 2 to 3 courtrooms for you to go to see female judges in action. Yes, we are action players. We do things that are actionable, and we make decisions as well. Yes.
So we get to see real judges.
What is your name?
My name's Roma.
What's your name? One second.
Laterica.
Laterica.
Helen.
Okay. I kept seeing you today.
Had a Judge Judy conversation.
We had a Judge Judy conversation.
Right. But Laterica, we are all real judges.
Are we going to see a real trial? That's a
All
real
right.
trial.
Yes, we have. Okay. We have Judge Catherine Nelson. Judge Nelson, stand up. That's a real judge. That's one of my colleagues. She's finishing up a trial, and if you get to go to that courtroom, you'll get to see a real judge in action. Judge Stephanie Aaron, stand up. That's a real judge. And if you get an opportunity to go see Judge Aaron, you'll get to see a real judge in action. Judge Karina Kirkendall, stand up. Judge Kirkendall expects to be in trial. We're hoping that she is, and if she is, we'll get to see Judge Kirkendall in trial. Commissioner Aaron, stand up. Commissioner Aaron's, actually, the courtroom we're in is Commissioner Aaron's courtroom right now. And she switched with me so that I can have the bigger courtroom today to have all of you here. So she is upstairs in where my courtroom is at. And Commissioner Aaron's, you have a doctor this afternoon. So that's a real judge. Okay? She's a judicial officer. It's a commissioner, but you can see her in action as well. She makes decisions. There's just a difference as to how she got here. We are elected as far as judges or appointed. Commissioners work at the behest of the judges. Okay? Now, the other commissioners and judges in this room, please stand up. Now, we are all real judges. Yeah, okay. We'll get to your question. So let's get Judge Phelps to answer some of those questions. That was great.
Actually, I think that I should, since she seems to be the expert, I'm going to ask my colleague and mentor, Judge Lloyd K. Smith, to address the question about Judge Judy versus us real judges.
I'm sorry, I was just telling you. We had this conversation at this table. She told us that Judge Judy wasn't real. They're just paying people.
I had to break the news to her that Judge Judy was not real. So here, let me tell you the Judge Judy story. Judge Judy used to be a judge who worked in a court in New York. Right now, Judge Judy is on television, not a judge, not in any court, What happens on Judge Judy, and the reason I know that is because I have a friend who was approached by the Judge Judy people, is that those people look all around the country in the dockets to see what cases are in, usually small claims court, municipal court. And when they see a case that they think is interesting, they approach both sides and say, would you like to be on television? If you say yes, you tell everyone your case is settled, we will pay you to come to our TV show, and then Judge Judy will decide, and yes, I'm using the bunny ears, decide your case as a judge, and it's all for television. So it's not a real court, it's not a real decision. People decide to give up their case in court, and they have entertainment television where they're paid to come, and there's a decision that's made, and I think they pay the winner for the
One show was
decision.
talking about a car. It's just a car. You can buy a new one. Okay, hold on. We have some follow-up. Whoa! There's revolt. There's revolt.
Okay, so I'm a district court judge. Part of our assignment is to do small claims work. And in fact, Judge Judy, some of the other television judges do come to district courts. They will sit in our file room looking at files of cases that are pending or set for hearing. They'll look to see if they can find one that looks like it might be interesting, and then they contact the parties. The parties do sign a settlement agreement with the court, and then when they go to the television show, each side gets paid, and they're instructed on how to make the case entertaining. Now that causes some problems for those of us that do small claims court, because sometimes people come to my courtroom and think it's going to be like Judge Judy, or that worse, I'm going to behave like Judge Judy.
She yells.
Yeah, you're right, the judge does not behave. And so part of, it turned off on me. Well, part of what the judge has to do, and particularly I think it applies to women judges, is that people will come to small claims court thinking that, number one, the judge is going to treat them in that way. Do you think that's true?
No.
Do you think that's what judges should act like? No. So we have to create a courtroom that makes it clear that people are going to get a fair hearing. They're not going to interrupt each other. The judge is not going to yell over the top of them. We're not going to scold them. We're going to make a decision, but we have to create that atmosphere. I sometimes refer to it myself as the mood in the room. You want to try to make sure that everybody knows this is going to be a fair place for them to have their case heard. But sometimes it's a problem. And so I'll tell people, this isn't television. It may be boring. And people who sit in a courtroom for a long period of time sometimes think it's incredibly boring, and that's because justice is deliberate. We're looking at things one step at a time, making sure that we're doing it right and everybody has a chance to be heard. But television justice is a problem that we face every day.
And if any of us real judges were to act like Judge Judy, what would happen to us?
So judges are subject to rules that make it clear that we're supposed to behave. We're supposed to behave in a way. We're supposed to behave in a way that reflects well on the judicial system as a whole. And is that what I'm doing?
Oh, that was
The court. Okay, well, I won't hold the court. I appreciate the technological advice. So if we do not treat people with dignity and respect, then judges can essentially go through a hearings process, another administrative kind of process, to have a hearing to say, maybe you need to change your behavior. And that does happen sometimes to judges, but it's something we all need to keep in mind.
Okay, we have a question over here.
There's a bunch of questions.
There's lots of questions.
And if Judge Judy is supposed to be a real judge, why doesn't she have a big jury?
She's not a real judge.
Because that would change too long. It's all that.
Okay. So,
question. Okay, next question.
Do you believe in the American flag?
Are you asking me personally, or do you want? The question is, do I believe in the American flag? And kind of what that actually is a really good question. And kind of also I want to play that into a question that I think for many people that sit on the bench that are from marginalized communities or communities of color, we get faced all the time. And that is, given the distrust that we in our communities tend to have for the justice system, how does that affect our job? So I want to see if one of my colleagues would like to answer that question. Colleagues?
The judge. Someone over here, I see a few judges.
Yes, ma'am. Who hasn't spoken today?
And we have Judge Nevin. We have
Judge Nevin.
here. We have Judge Murphy in the back. Let's get them involved.
Judge Patrick's going to speak. So the question is, do you believe in the American flag, and how does being a judge of color affect the way you address your job, given the distrust that minority communities and marginalized communities have of the justice system?
Okay. So I am an administrative law judge, and so I focus on a specific areas of law. However, one, yes, I do believe in the American flag. And actually I had an interesting conversation about this with some folks a couple weeks ago. And I have a number of family members who served in this country for us to be able to choose to believe or not believe in said flag. And I choose to believe in it. I believe in the sacrifices that they made. I believe in who I saw them become when they returned to this country, and the continued hurt and pain that I saw on their faces from what they experienced, particularly some of my older family members that were in Vietnam and Korean War and things like that. So I absolutely believe in the American flag. I believe in our country. I believe there's flaws, like most countries. I believe we are not perfect, but I believe we have to continue to strive to be better. I think someone said earlier, that's the goal. Every morning you're striving to be better, you're striving to leave the world a better place than you found it. So I think that that's what we have to continue to do. As far as being a woman of color and being a judge, I think I had a conversation with one of my good friends over there this week about, a lot of things that are going on right now always re-energize me. I told Judge Whitener I really wanted to come to this event. I was so honored to be invited to this event because this is my way of contributing. I'm not a march on the street person, but I give in my way, I help in my way, I help improve in my way, I help inspire in my way. And I think that it's the typical, as our former First Lady said that everyone is repeating, someone goes low, you still go high. And you stay high. You stay raising that bar, you're constantly raising that bar, and you make sure that bar does not get lowered by anyone. You stand your ground, you know who you are as a person, and as long as you know who you are as a person, nothing that anyone says or does should be able to change that in a negative way. And so I just have to believe in what I'm doing, know that I'm doing the best that I can do with what I have when I'm doing it, and be able to look at myself in the mirror and sleep at night. And the rest, for me, God will take care of the rest.
Thank you. Would any other judges like to speak on that before I take my question? Okay, I'm going to try and hit people that I know haven't asked questions yet. Yes.
I'm pretty sure I already know, but are any of the judge shows on TV real?
No. Next question. We're so sorry. We really rocked Joe's world.
What was some of your introductions into law and law field going into society?
Okay. Anyone want to address that from a judge that hasn't spoken yet? Okay. Oh, I'm sorry. The question is, what were some of your introductions to the law and the legal field? Anyone want to address that? Judge Flood. Judge Flood, I believe that you also were in the military for a while. And could you talk about that a little bit as a path to law school? So that we know that there's many ways to get to law.
Good afternoon. I served in on active duty. I grew up in Chicago, and right pretty much after high school, I graduated at 16, and I went in the Navy at 17. So I had started taking classes and basically tried to figure out how to pay for it. So the military was my way and my path. One of the things that I found growing up in the city is there was not very many faces that looked like mine. I traveled about an hour north from where I lived to go to school. It was one of the top schools in Chicago. And during that time, the comptroller for the state of Illinois was a man of color. His name was Roland, and I got to meet him. And that was encouraging to see a person in a position of power that looked somewhat like me. It wasn't a woman, but that was encouraging. So my images came from television, probably much like the Judge Judy, seeing that on TV. But I have to go back to the Cosby Show, to Claire Huxtable, and remember that she was a positive image of a woman of color who was an attorney. And that was what I strived for as long as I could remember. I just wanted to be an attorney. But along the way, you run into what I call dream killers. Because there wasn't very many people, I didn't have very much exposure to women of color as teachers or as role models. There were those that had tried it and said, you can't do it because I didn't do it. Or it's too hard and you just can't do it. So that became motivation, and that motivation led me to seek out people that look like me. And when I was in the Navy, I got to read the first Black Rear Admiral, and I worked for him for a short time. And when I got transferred to Texas, I met some civilians who had served in the military, because then I became a supervisor, that said, you should be going to school. You're young, you're smart, and just go to school. So they changed my schedule so that I could work at night and go to school during the day. And I then ended up here in Washington and transferred to the University of Washington and finished my degree and became a Washingtonian by default. So that's kind of my path. And just know that you may not be able to see or connect all the time with that positive image, but this conference here has provided you with a connection that a lot of us didn't have. Utilize your resources. Utilize the internet and information and blogs, and that will help you be encouraged when there's times in the piece that come in front of you where you feel like you can't do it, but you can. You can do anything that you put your mind to. Anything. Anything is possible.
Another question?
So if a judge were to have to go to trial, would they go to a much higher rate of court?
You mean if we did something wrong? Well, it kind of would depend on what that judge did. If they committed a crime, then the type of crime that they committed would determine if they would go to municipal, and where they did it would determine if they were going to be, like, let's say if I did something really stupid like today, I thought that this conference was really great, so after I left here, I went over to the bar and I started drinking, and then before I headed back to Seattle, I got on the road and I got pulled over and got a DUI. Well, what would happen is I would appear in a court, depending on where it happened. If it happened here in the city of Tacoma, probably the city of Tacoma. If I happen to be someplace in unincorporated Pierce County, I go to the district court in Pierce County. Or if it happened on I-5, I think that probably is state patrol, I would assume, so I'd probably still end up in Pierce County District Court. But if I did something more serious, like a felony, that would depend on, did I do it in Seattle? Where in King County? Did I do it in Pierce County? So just because we're judges, we're no different than a regular person if we break the law. Now, if you're talking about if we do something wrong on the bench, and do you guys understand what we mean when we say we're on the bench? That's where the judge sits in the courtroom, just so you know. So if we do something wrong while we're on the bench, and it's not a crime, but we just were a bad judge, then we have special hearings that it's a special process that we're student. It's not a criminal process. Does that answer your question? Okay, all right. Yes.
Just a little bit more about that last bit. So if a judge does something like yell at attorneys and constantly tell them to shut up, or if she or he violates one of the ethical canons, then what happens is, as Judge Page has said, and the attorneys or parties in the courtroom make a complaint, then that complaint goes to what's called the Judicial Conduct Commission. And they review it, and if they decide that we violated the rules that govern our job, then they would discipline us. And we do have the right, just like Justice Yu told you this morning, to appeal that decision if we don't agree to it. And we would appeal it to Justice Yu and her colleagues on the Supreme Court.
Thank you. Okay.
I just want to know if any of the judges or jurors are scared of if they do something that a criminal doesn't like in trial, like they gave them the punishment he didn't want, if they're scared that they'll come back and try to harm them anyway.
Anyone have that experience? Want to talk about it?
So it is really hard to sentence people to jail, and sometimes people don't take it well. I have been threatened by a defendant who appeared in my courtroom. Sometimes it is very scary, but we're all very fortunate because each courthouse has, in our case, we have marshals. Sometimes they're deputy sheriffs, and they all take very good care of us and protect us. There's a lot of security measures. Most judges don't publish their home address, even though on the internet you can find it really easily. But we have safety nets. Sometimes it does happen. Most times it's just a threat, and fortunately nobody gets hurt. But sometimes people do kind of get out of control. And there was a judge in Thurston County who actually had somebody who came to his home and harmed him. Fortunately, it wasn't a serious harm, but we do have a lot of safety nets like these marshals and deputies that can protect us.
Other hands. Okay, let's see some. Excuse me. So have you guys ever experienced when a judge would go angry or act out of emotion, throw things at weird their
Judges?
Yeah.
Have any of us done that? Have we, as lawyers, or heard?
The question is, have any of us ever heard of a judge actually throwing something? Oh, okay, I guess that's.
So one of the things that judges do is we have continuing education. Lawyers do too. It's kind of lifelong learning, part of what makes the job so much fun. But one of the things that we do is we have continuing education in what's called ethics. That's kind of the rules of being fair as a judge and how to make good decisions, not necessarily what the decision is, but that we make it in a way that people understand, that we make an attempt to do it. So one of the things we get in terms of this ethics training sometimes is the worst. Take a look at what is the worst behavior. And I recently saw a video of a judge who got into an argument with a defense lawyer, I think, and disagreed with the argument the defense lawyer was making. And instead of just saying, I'm going to take a recess now and come back in 15 minutes, or asking the lawyer to sit down or do something, the judge escalated the argument and offered to meet the lawyer outside to have a fist fight. It was a terrible thing to see. The judge lost his job as a result of it, and well deserved. But sometimes those kind of worst behaviors we talk about them to say, where could the judge have taken a different step? I mean, obviously, none of us want to get to that position, but where could the judge have made a different decision about how the hearing was going, or what steps the judge might have taken to kind of deflect that ultimately really bad result? And, think about it. How would it make you feel if you were in the audience and your case was next? How would that make you feel? Pretty bad. We want people to come to court, not to be scared of it.
So, why did Judge put her, not reality, her real more money? It's that simple. It really is. She did pay millions of dollars.
Like, say if someone's defending yourself, like, the drop side of something, and a person comes up to try to, like, beat them up or whatever, and the person hits them first, and the person that got hit first, they hit back or beat the person up worse than, like, what the person did to them. Will the person that beat them up worse, that got hit first, will they get killed? Or...
So the question is simply kind of like, how does self-defense play into a situation if someone is attacked and they to protect themselves, they strike back, they hit a person?
All right. Well, okay. A lot of this is going to be determined by the prosecutor. So what will happen is that law enforcement will probably come and they'll start to assess the situation. They will talk to all the parties, all the witnesses, and then contact the prosecutor's office and make their recommendation in terms of who they believe should be prosecuted for the crime. So there is self-defense. However, there are certain limitations on self-defense, and it is up to the prosecutor's office to make the recommendation for who should be charged. But yes, in this country we do have self-defense, but again, there are limitations on that. So those are issues that then would be argued to the judge based on the facts and based on the law. So whether you could defend yourself with self-defense, or if it was a situation where the law does not allow it.
Okay. Thank you. All right, let me go to your son. I'll be back.
So if someone goes to jail for a crime they didn't commit, and later on while they're still in jail, there's proof that they didn't commit it, what else happens besides them getting out of jail?
So the question is, if someone goes to jail for a crime they didn't commit, and it's later determined that they didn't commit it, and they're let out of jail, are there any other courses or avenues of recourse?
Yes, there is. There's a process called personal restraint petition, and it's a collateral attack on your conviction. So if there is evidence that show, for example, the big thing now is DNA evidence. If there's DNA evidence that show that you absolutely was not the person there, that the blood that they said was yours was really not yours, you can file a personal restraint petition, and someone at the Court of Appeals, someone on my position, would review that and see if there's enough evidence here to reverse that conviction. So there is an avenue if there is solid proof that you didn't do it.
All right. More questions? You have asked. Let me grab her. You can. Oh, hi. Oh, okay.
If someone gets sent to the jail for being found guilty, is there a way to open up the case again after they've already been sentenced?
So if there's new evidence that's discovered?
Yeah.
Okay.
So the question is, if someone is convicted and then there's new evidence that they are innocent, what can they do to overturn that?
So anytime that a person either pleads guilty or they go to trial and they're found guilty, they are advised of their rights to appeal. And they'll go through that with their attorney, and there's time limits depending on what the basis for that is. But yes, they can file the right to appeal, and if a person is unable to afford the filing fee, that's something that comes before the judge, that the judge can waive that so that there isn't a barrier to file an appeal, and it can be determined for, legal basis. But that's what that looks like.
More hands? Okay.
If he gets sent to immediate death, is that the Supreme Court?
That's a very good question. If you are convicted and the death penalty is imposed, does that go to the Supreme Court? Would one of my judges who hasn't spoken like to take, or commissioners, like to take that question on? Judge Lori Kay. The question is, if you are convicted of a crime and the sentence is death, does that go directly to the Supreme Court for appeal?
Well, you can appeal any part of your case. So the first Court of Appeals is the Court of Appeals. And there's all sorts of reasons why your trial may not have been fair or proper that ultimately resulted in the death penalty. So typically people aren't just appealing the death penalty, they're appealing how they got convicted and many of the steps along the way. So it's pretty rare that there would be an automatic review, because you probably want more than one chance at that. If you can get more than one chance at that, you want to go to the Court of Appeals and have Judge Lee tell you that the trial court did something terribly wrong, and so you get a new trial for that.
Anyone else that hasn't asked a question?
What if, let's say a prisoner walked in someone's courtroom and they just started screaming at the judge? What do the judge do?
Commissioner, would you like to address what happens if someone comes into a courtroom and they're not acting appropriately?
Well, that's not an easy question to answer. Typically, of course, we try to keep our courtrooms safe and in order. If polite discussion with this person would not redirect the person, I do have the ability to call for a deputy to escort him out of the courtroom. Worker.
Okay, let's go over here. I have not heard from you. Ms. Jones, I know you've had your hand up, but you were about to ask the question earlier. Trying to get to the water.
Okay, so what if someone was accused of like murder, but they didn't have, like the person didn't have, he didn't do it, but he didn't have like proof that he didn't do it, and so they made him take a plea deal, but then they found out that he didn't do it like 20 years later. What will happen?
So can a person ever overturn a plea?
Pretty much. Yeah.
Pretty much? Okay. Someone like to address that?
You can still answer that, even though you're nailed it. Yes, even though my nailed it, yes. So your question was, if somebody's convicted, pleaded guilty, can that conviction be overturned? Is that the question? The answer is yes. He would file an appeal and say, this plea was not knowing, that may be one of the standards. I didn't understand what my attorney was telling me, and trying to get the appellate court, say Judge Lee's court, to
to understand what happened and say, okay, this was not a knowing plea, and set it aside that way.
Is it easier to work your way up to a juvenile judge than a superior court judge?
Okay, so the question is basically the difference between a juvenile court judge and a superior court. Basically, I'll answer that really quickly. In at least all of the superior courts that I'm aware of, I'm new to the bench, so if I'm wrong, please correct me, colleagues. We are courts of general jurisdiction, which means that we do all things that fall under the superior court. So right now, for example, I'm doing family law, but in 2 years or next year, I could be doing the criminal cases, or I could be doing civil, or I could be sent over to do the juvenile court cases. So we're courts of general jurisdiction. So I think we have time for probably one more question. That's a really good question. So here, the question is, how do you get sentenced to death? Here in Washington, there are only certain crimes that you can be sentenced to death for. Those are called capital punishment, so they're capital crimes. And there's a very few limited circumstances, and it's a decision by the prosecutor whether or not they want to actually have the death sentence on the table. Sometimes they will decide instead if the person's found guilty, they want them to be sentenced to life imprisonment instead of death. Sometimes they go after the death penalty. It's a decision by the prosecutor. Okay, so at this time, we get to go see real judges do real judge work. And great questions, lady, again. If you have other questions, grab a judge and ask. Great questions. Yay! I think Judge Whitner's going to release you guys, so hold on.
Stay seated. All right, stay seated. Thank you. Thank you, Judge Bell. And wonderful questions. And I love the fact that you're all thinking about. I'm glad you all are thinking about the legal system, the legal process, how it impacts you. All right, I need your attention at this time, please. Thank you. See, now that's what you do in a courtroom when you have someone who is listening. You get their attention politely, but sternly. Now, a couple of things. You're about to go into the courtroom to observe real judges do their docket. Real female judges, we may be able to even see one male judge. Judge Nevin may be able to accommodate some of us. A couple of things about courtroom decorum. Hats need to be removed. They're not appropriate for the courtroom. So when you get to the courtroom, you're going to have to remove your hat, as that is not respectful. When you're in the courtroom, you need to be quiet, because these are recorded proceedings. You will see what is called a court recorder, and my court recorder has been assisting me all day, and she's in the back, but you'll actually see another real court reporter sitting there taking what looks like typing, but they're actually recording the proceeding. And that's how we have what is called a transcript to answer some of your questions. When there's an appeal, the Court of Appeals need to be able to look at things. When there are motions, the judges need to look at what was said and what was done. So the court reporter records everything that happens in the courtroom. You will also see in the courtroom someone identified as a judicial assistant. Court can't run without a judicial assistant. That individual helps the court run smoothly, helps the docket run smoothly, keeps things in order, and makes the judges look good. My judicial assistant actually just took 10 girls to the restroom, so you'll be seeing another judicial assistant in the various courtrooms that you're going into. Now we have courtroom CDPG, our criminal docket. In there, just about everything can pass through. That will be Judge Aaron. We also have Judge Kitty Ann Van Dornick. She's starting a family law case. That is a case that is heard to the judge. We call that a bench trial. So you won't have a jury in that particular trial, but you'll get to see at least part of that as well. We have Judge Nelson, who has a civil case. Judge Nelson has a jury trial, so you will see jurors, which is why it's really important that you be quiet, because you're there to observe, and you're going to have in your packet some pads, some paper, write some questions down. Because if you get a hold of some judges later, you may be able to ask them some questions you have after observing. This is not like Judge Judy. It is very structured, and some of the craziness you see on TV will not be occurring in the courtroom. Turn your phones off. No pictures will be allowed, no photographing in the courtroom, as well as you need to check your phones, make sure they're turned off, because again, you don't want to disrupt the process. Even though it's an open courtroom, there are still policies and procedures and things that need to be followed. It's like you're going to school, but a little more structured. All right, I think we might be ready